We move into analysis and recommendation, it's very important to talk about limitation of this research. In market research, limitations are not weakness. In fact, being transparent about them makes the research more credible and more trustworthy. So in this section, I'll explain the scope of the study, what we can confidently conclude, and what should be interpreted with caution. The first limitation is related to the primary data collection. In an ideal situation, we could conduct in-store observation, face-to-face interviews with students, or large-scale surveys. However, these activities require significant time, cost, and access to physical location and respondent. Within the scope of this research, those methods were not fully feasible, so direct field observation and primary surveys were limited. As a result, this research relies heavily on secondary and online data. This includes industry reports, academic journals, e-commerce pricing data, consumer review, and publicly available brand and retailer information. This approach is actually very common in exploratory market research, especially when the goal is to understand patterns, trends, and decision frameworks rather than exact numerical prediction. However, secondary data come with its own risks. Online reviews, for example, are often written by consumers with very strong opinions, either very satisfied or very dissatisfied. This means the silent majority is not always represented. Additionally, secondary data may not fully capture local nuance, such as difference between students in major cities and those in smaller regions. Because the data was not collected directly by the researcher, control over how the data was gathered is also limited. Another important limitation is that this research focused primarily on students, on the segments such as corporate buyers, professional creators, or high-end gamers are not deeply explored. This means the findings should not be interpreted as fully representative of the entire laptop market. However, this focus is intentionally and strategic because students are the largest and most complex decision-making segment in the Indonesian laptop market. The laptop market also changed very quickly. New models are released every 6 to 12 months, price fluctuates frequently, and new categories like AI laptop continues to emerge. This means that the insight from this research reflect market condition at a specific point time in the time. To remain accurate, similar analysis should be updated periodically as technology and consumer expectations evolve. Despite this limitation, this research still provides strong strategic value. The goal of this study is not to predict exact sales number, but to deliver directional insight. This insight helps brands and retailers understand what students care about, how they make trade-offs, and where confusion or misalignment occurs. For decision makers, this level of insight is often more valuable than precise but narrow data. By understanding the limitation of this research, we can interpret the finding more objectively. In the next section, we will move into attribute importance and type of analysis. We'll answer one question: which laptop attributes truly matter most to students, and how do they prioritize price, performance, battery life, and then when making purchase decision? This is where insights start in turning into the strategy. Thank you.